So I've panned the Cayman Islands here on occasion, mostly because I find regulators in Cayman Islands to be somewhat duplicitous and talking out of both sides of their mouth. Like, you find that they espouse or tend to espouse a very regimented and strict AML KYC regime, yet it's the money laundering capital of the planet. And so and that was in the hedge fund context, and I do things there. And the question often comes up is what is the least expensive offshore bank? And the gut of every, the gut answer to that, right, is almost always Puerto Rico and the International Financial Entity, the IFE, which I've spoken about before in depth, but it's actually not the cheapest. The cheapest is actually the Cayman Islands, which is, I guess, somewhat surprising because it's an expensive place to sort of operate in general, right? Their corporation fees are much higher compared to like a BVI and things of that nature. But for an offshore bank, it is in fact very cost effective, and the capital capital requirements needn't be shown towards until the end of the process, till the license has been approved, as opposed to other locales where the proof of capital needs to be shown up front. So you can almost structure like a option of sorts, right, where you pay the application fee, go through the application, and then wait to find the outcome before you have to put the money down. And there's different classes of licenses, right? A, B, C, and D. The primary license that an offshore bank would get is a Class B license. Many people will try to sell you on what's the cheaper Class D license, but as an aside, the Class D license is a pure private bank. At the time of application, you actually have to enumerate from whom you're intending to solicit funds, and you're limited to those individuals without an amendment to your charter. So it is in every way possible a private bank, but once you're done, right? You have to raise the money, effectively list those people, and then you're closed off. So it's not terribly effective unless you truly want to start a absolutely private bank. People say, oh, private bank, and they throw that batter about the word like it's this thing, and it's not, right? But in Cayman Islands, Class D bank license is a private bank. So the Class B private license, banking license, is a true offshore bank, right? And it allows you to operate globally with the exception of the Cayman Islands. Application fee is about $12,000, $13,000 this year, and the capital requirement is $250,000, which makes it $50,000 less than Puerto Rico's $300,000. What I've noticed is that you'll find in the Cayman Islands, because it does involve, incorporation fees and all that, is still a little bit higher, right? Your incorporation fee for through a corporate service provider in Cayman at its cheapest may be $4,000, but overall, it's actually still going to bear out to be less expensive than Puerto Rico when you consider the paid-in capital requirements and then the working capital requirement. And the process is the same as really any other jurisdiction as it relates to preparing business plan, which has to be in accordance with New York Federal Reserve Board guidelines, which is becoming the standard worldwide. Draft financial statements prepared by a certified accountant, certain financial models, obviously their application piece, rigorous KYC AML for the UBOs, right? And usually this is a holding company structure, so you're going to have a corporation, then the UBOs behind that corporation owning the licensed entity. And the process can take, 5 or more months, but it is in fact, surprisingly, the least costly offshore bank operation that you can undoubtedly find. As it relates to cryptocurrency, it's not the most favorable jurisdiction, right? I would still say, Puerto Rico would, for its I guess, increase in cost or capital requirement, I would say is more friendly and offers a wider license, especially if you're seeking to operate in like a securities dealer or commodities dealer space, which the Cayman license is very tailored and specific only to offshore banking, like deposit taking and loan making, and that's it. So it's not, necessarily from a crypto perspective, fintech perspective, like a ideal jurisdiction, but you can do some limited activities, especially it relates to peer-to-peer payments and other prospective activities that may involve blockchain in any sense. So it's overall, it's I would still, obviously, in my world, and being crypto heavy, I would always espouse the Puerto Rico model, and but you also have to consider taxes are actually 0 versus 3% in Puerto Rico, so you do have that. But I do think that it's worth looking at, right? It's worth an evaluation if you were in the market to start. There's certainly a prestige factor and an optics factor that I've mentioned before, like in the hedge fund context, where the optics of Cayman Islands may be more preferable than the optics of BVI or Puerto Rico, especially in the banking sense. So check it out. I've got a blog post up about it, and take a look at it. And if you have questions, let me know. Adam at adamtracy, tracy.io, and I'll talk to you soon.